Greetings everyone and welcome back to 365 Days of Prog. Today we're going to be reviewing Doomsday Afternoon by Phideaux.
Hi, my name's Naomi. I'm an avid progressive rock fan, but I'm a long ways from knowing all the prog albums out there. But this year, I'm gonna give it a try. This is 365 Days of Prog.
So I don't know for a fact that's how you pronounce the name Phideaux because it's written like with an E-A-U-X at the end, but I do know the word Bordeaux, so I can only assume you say it the same way. I really don't know. But anyway, here are some of my favorite bits from this album. So it has been quite a while since we've had an art rock album on the list, and moreover a melodically conceptual theatrical album. I think that one of the few instances was 666 by Aphrodite's Child and Dream Theater's Metropolis Part 2. And the album that we are reviewing today was made by Phideaux, a group of musicians which is led and was formed by, of course, Phideaux Javier, a songwriter, composer, and multi-instrumentalist. And although you can view this album as a standalone piece of music, this album is actually the second installment of a trilogy of albums. And as for within the album itself, Javier actually mentioned that this album technically consists of one long piece of music that was divided down to 10 separate tracks due to comfort's sake. And this album is actually structured quite interestingly, with having 10 tracks. It is split into two halves, with the first half acting as Act 1 and the second one being the Act 2 of the entire theatrical conceptual piece. And one would quickly recognize that this album also has something very interesting with its structure, where the first and last songs both mirror each other, with the first one being called Microsoft Death Star and the last one being called Micro Death Soft Star, as well as having two tracks that share the similar name, Crumble, which is pretty odd. They don't have like part 1, part 2, just two tracks both called Crumble. And the concept for this album has to do with the idea of totalitarianism and authoritarianism, something like 1984 by George Orwell with the Big Brother concept. And while I do love the idea personally, I tried and stray away and not think about the concept too much when listening to this one for the first time, because my personal ideology is that when we reach a concept album, it is best firstly at the first listen to listen to it mostly for the music found on it and the value that it inherently has, without knowing what the concept is about, and only then, if I enjoyed the album itself for the music, can I come back for a second time and actually enjoy it for the concept. And let me tell you all this right now, I didn't come back to it for a second time. And I hope that my hints got across pretty well, but I will say this quite straightforwardly, I kinda just didn't really enjoy this album all that much. That is to say, I don't think that this is a bad album and I could definitely appreciate it, but for some reason I just found it hard to connect with, and I think that this is a classic case of an album which is just not my cup of prog. And I think that it all comes down to the fact that this album really tries hard to recreate that retro prog sound, which I would normally love, but in this various case, I think that it just comes off as pretentious. And seeing as Javier himself actually described this album as being a very pretentious album, I kinda don't feel about saying it at all. And when going down and looking at the individual tracks, I had a lot of varied opinions about them, which is something that I don't normally have. Usually when I review an album, the ratings for each individual song, they range in a pretty close range, but in this case, I found myself really loving and really hating some songs on here. So for example, the song Thank You for the Evil got a rating of 3. Now 3 is something that I don't easily just hand out to any simple song. I usually have to suffer through a song to actually give it that rating, but I do actually honestly believe that that song was that bad. But the funny thing about it is that the second time we see the Crumble song, I gave that one a 10 out of 10. It's a perfect track, I enjoyed it a bit, and I don't really remember the last time when I had two of these in the same rating, having a 3 out of 10 song and a 10 out of 10 songs. That's kinda odd in my opinion. Most of this album just kinda had me going, what is the point? Like, why are we doing this? Yes, this album had its usual ups and downs and it just kinda went along, but at no single point did I actually feel like anything meant anything at all. And that's why it was so surprising when the Crumble song came along and suddenly, from something that I was definitely not connected to, I found myself really emotionally connected to this singular song on here that really oozed out my feelings. Like, I don't know how, it just matched, it clicked, and everything was perfect for just a few moments. And then it ended and we moved on to the next track and I was like, okay, we're back, nothing special anymore. And this was like the oddest experience ever, I have to say. And I see a lot of people online praising this album being a prog masterpiece of the modern age, like The Dark Side of the Moon or The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway or whatever. But I just don't agree with that. I don't think that's true. I don't think that's correct. I don't really know how people can view this as being one of those. This is definitely not even that much of a progressive album at points, let alone being a very influential and highly innovative one that is just so perfect. I really don't get this criticism. If anything, I would have to say that this album feels more like a huge undertaking taken by Phideaux himself, which he kinda sorta flopped at doing. And as I already mentioned, my least favorite song from this album is Thank You for the Evil. This song, I have no idea. I've seen someone online saying that this song is their favorite, it's so progressive, and I was like, what are you talking about? No, it is, and nothing about it is. It's 9 minutes, 9 very slow minutes if I might add, of the same snare and kick drum rhythm just going over and over again, and only after like 3 minutes do we actually get vocals and we have slight solos on top of it, but it's so excruciatingly boring. And maybe in the right context of things this song could work, but I really don't see how, and it's so long and it just doesn't really add anything, and it just wasted my time listening to it. And you know, the funny thing about this album is that on paper I had every single reason to enjoy this. It has symphonic elements, which is something that I really like. It has a banger concept. It's well inspired by Genesis and Pink Floyd alike. It's like the dream album, but for some reason all of this coming together actually just made me not like it even more. And if I had to sum this up, again, this isn't necessarily a bad album, just one I didn't connect with like at all, and secondly, I just didn't enjoy it. And if we're not enjoying the music here, then what are we doing?
If I can't scuba, then what's this all been about? What am I working toward?
But before we move on to the cover, I just want to add that I think that Phideaux actually still has my respect, and I am interested to see what his other works sound like. I've read a lot of people saying that they don't like this one, but they do really like other things that he made because they don't sound the same. So I'm really looking forward to listen to more by Phideaux, but for now, this one was just not my type, and I would like to move on from it and talk about the cover. The cover, on the other hand, is just brilliant. It's amazing, it's so lovely, and incorporates so many ideas in one form, one object that is made entirely seamlessly. So of course you have the blood red clover, and then inside of it you have the 3 faces, each one with his own unique identity. And personally, as I see it, it looks to me like you have the figure of Satan or some satanic figure, and then with both his hands he embraces the mad and the terrified. And the range of emotions that are drawn on here are just splendid. Everything is so nice. You can see Satan with his, profoundly evil face. He also keeps it very cool. And then you have the mad, which is definitely a great way of representing it. And also you have the terrified, which looks pretty much terrified. It's a little more exaggerated than what you might expect, and that's what makes it so beautiful. Honestly, if Aphrodite's Child 666 album ever needed like a replacement cover, this would be a fantastic one for sure. It has all the right ingredients to feature that album's idea in it anyway, and I think that's a pretty nice observation. But of course, this is this cover, and 666 also has a pretty banger cover for itself as it is. To me personally, I don't find that this album cover really kind of connects with the concept for this album entirely, but at the same time, I said that I wasn't gonna talk about the concept at all, so I guess we'll just have to put it aside and only appreciate this piece of art for being such a beautiful and wonderful piece of art, which I just can't seem to stop gazing at. So this album was able to disappoint me despite me not having any expectations towards listening to it, but in any case I do think that I have to be fair and give it a very generous 6 out of 10. But that's about it, guys. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and stay tuned for tomorrow because we're going to be listening to something quite different from what we've listened to all these past months now, and that's going to be Habibi Funk number 3 by Ahmed Malek. I of course want to thank my lovely supporters over on Patreon, so thank you so much to Clay Wanham and Wrist of Kings. You guys are the best, and if any of you want to support me over on Patreon, you can find the link down in the description or in my about page. But that's about it, guys. Have a wonderful day, and I'll catch you all tomorrow. Bye, guys.